What do you do when the person who hurt you most never says the words you crave to hear? What happens when the apology never comes? Do you keep waiting, holding your breath, hoping one day they'll wake up, realize what they did, and finally make it right? Because here's the hard truth. Some people will never give you that apology. Not because you don't deserve it, but because they don't have the courage to face what they've done. They'll bury it. They'll justify it. They'll twist the story to make themselves the victim. And while you're sitting there waiting for closure, they're walking away, living their life, never giving you the validation you think will set you free. So let me ask you, how long are you willing to let their silence dictate your healing? How many days, months, years will you keep replaying the same moment? The same betrayal, the same disappointment, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'll come back with the words, "I'm sorry." What if I told you that waiting for that apology is the very thing keeping you from moving on? That closure doesn't come from them, it comes from you. You see, we're taught to believe that healing requires reconciliation, that in order to move forward, the other person must acknowledge the pain they caused. But the reality is, life doesn't work that way. People don't always do what's right. Sometimes the only justice you'll ever get is the one you create for yourself. The question is, are you strong enough to stop waiting? Are you brave enough to let go without ever hearing the words you wanted to hear? Because real freedom isn't in their apology. Real freedom is in your decision. The moment you stop waiting for them to make it right is the moment you start making it right for yourself. One of the hardest lessons you will ever face in life is accepting that some people will never apologize. No matter how deeply they hurt you, no matter how obvious their wrong was, no matter how much you think they owe you an acknowledgement, they simply won't. And the more you wait for that moment, the more you hand over your life to someone who has already proven they cannot give you what you need. Think about it. How many nights have you stayed awake, replaying conversations in your head, scripting out how it should have gone? How many times have you imagined them finally coming back, looking you in the eye and saying the words you've been longing to hear? "I'm sorry. I was wrong. You didn't deserve that." You picture it so clearly that it almost feels real. But then you wake up and the silence is still there. The apology never arrives, and you are left sitting in the emptiness of unmet expectations. Here's the reality. Some people don't apologize because they don't see what they did as wrong. Others don't apologize because their pride won't allow it. And some don't apologize because they've convinced themselves that ignoring it is easier than owning it. But regardless of the reason, the effect on you is the same. You remain chained to their inability to take responsibility. This is where you have to make a choice. You can either continue waiting, giving away your peace to someone else's lack of courage, or you can reclaim your power and move forward without their words. Because the truth is, an apology won't change what happened. It won't erase the pain. It won't give you back the years you lost. It won't undo the betrayal. The only thing it might give you is validation. But do you really want your worth, your healing, and your freedom to depend on the validation of someone who already proved they didn't value you enough in the first place? Waiting for an apology keeps you locked in a story that's no longer moving. It's like sitting in a theater staring at a blank screen, hoping the movie will play, when deep down you know the projector is broken. And the longer you sit there, the more time you waste, the more opportunities for joy and growth you miss, the more of your future you sacrifice to a past you cannot change. Let me be blunt. They might never come back. They might never admit the truth. They might live the rest of their lives pretending they did nothing wrong. And if you keep waiting for their apology, you'll spend your life waiting for a moment that doesn't exist. That's not closure. That's self-destruction. So what does it look like to stop waiting? It means deciding that your healing is not conditional on their actions. It means saying to yourself, whether they own up or not, I will move forward. Whether they acknowledge it or not, I will choose peace. Whether they apologize or not, I will heal. That's strength. That's freedom. That's taking your life back. Now, let's be clear. Letting go of waiting for an apology doesn't mean what they did was okay. It doesn't mean you minimize the pain or pretend it didn't matter. It simply means you refuse to give them the power to keep you stuck. It means you're choosing to live in the present, not chained to the past. It means you are no longer allowing their silence to dictate your future. And here's something powerful to realize. Sometimes their silence is the apology. Their inability to face you, their refusal to own their actions, their decision to move on without acknowledging the damage they caused, that tells you everything you need to know about them. That silence is proof of their weakness, their immaturity, their inability to rise to the level of accountability. And that silence, as painful as it is your closure. It's the universe showing you exactly who they are. When you stop waiting for the apology, you start building your own closure. You begin to write your own ending to the story. You stop being the character who waits by the door, hoping someone else delivers freedom. And you become the author who takes the pen and decides, this chapter is over, I'm moving on. That shift in perspective changes everything. It allows you to take the energy you've been wasting, energy spent on resentment, anger, and fantasies of justice, and pour it into yourself, into growth, into building new relationships, into pursuing your goals, into living a life that proves you are not defined by the people who failed you. That's the ultimate victory. Not their apology, not their recognition. Your life lived fully, joyfully, unapologetically. That's what wins. So stop waiting. Stop sitting in that theater with the broken projector. Stop handing over your power to people who don't deserve it. Start today. Stand up, walk out, and write the next chapter yourself. You don't need their apology to heal. You don't need their validation to move forward. You don't need their words to confirm your worth. You already know what happened. You already know the truth. And that truth, as painful as it may be, is enough. Because healing doesn't come when they say, I'm sorry. Healing comes the moment you stop waiting for them to. That's when the chains break. That's when the weight lifts. That's when you finally breathe freely again. And maybe, just maybe, one day they'll look back and realize what they did. Maybe they'll finally see the damage, the pain, the loss. But by then, it won't matter, because you won't be waiting anymore. You'll already be free. Sometimes the loudest message you'll ever receive is silence. We tend to think an apology has to come wrapped in the right words, with sincerity in their voice, maybe even tears in their eyes. We wait for that moment like it's a door we need them to open before we can walk through. But the truth is, silence is a message too. In fact, silence is often the clearest answer you'll ever get. When someone refuses to apologize, when they avoid the conversation, when they carry on as if nothing happened, that silence is telling you everything you need to know. It's telling you they either don't care enough to own the damage, or they're too afraid to face it. Silence isn't neutral. It's not absence. It's a choice. And that choice says more about them than any words ever could. Think about it. If someone truly valued you, if someone truly cared about the pain they caused, they wouldn't stay silent. They wouldn't ignore the weight of what happened. Even if the words were hard to say, even if it meant facing discomfort, they would step up. So when they don't, that silence is the apology. It's their way of admitting without saying a single word that they don't have the capacity to be who you hoped they were. The problem is, we're conditioned to see silence as unfinished business. We interpret it as something missing, a gap that must be filled. That's why people obsess over unanswered texts, unreturned calls, unresolved conflicts. We believe closure has to come from dialogue, but sometimes silence is closure. Sometimes the lack of response is the response. It's final. And once you accept that, you stop searching for words that will never arrive. Here's the thing about silence. It's uncomfortable. It leaves you with space you don't know how to fill. You keep replaying scenarios thinking, if I just reach out one more time, if I just explain it differently, maybe then they'll understand. You're tempted to chase an answer, but the more you chase, the louder the silence becomes. Because every attempt is met with nothing. Every effort bounces off a wall. That void is not an invitation for you to keep trying. It's the universe's way of telling you to let go. Silence is not respect. Silence is not love. Silence is avoidance. Silence is their inability or refusal to take responsibility. And the faster you interpret it correctly, the faster you liberate yourself, because silence actually does you a favor. It shows you who they are. It shows you that they lack the maturity, the courage, or the empathy to do better. And once you see that clearly, you stop putting them on a pedestal. You stop telling yourself, they'll come around. No, this is them. Silence is them. You might think, but if they cared, they would say something. You're right. They didn't. And that tells you everything. Their silence is proof. Proof they either don't value the relationship the way you did, or proof they value their own comfort over your pain. Either way, that silence is an answer. It might not be the one you wanted, but it's the one you needed. Now here's the shift. You can choose to see silence not as rejection, but as redirection. Their lack of apology pushes you back toward yourself. It forces you to stop waiting on them and start focusing on your own healing. It's a hard truth, but it's a liberating one. Because as long as you're waiting for words that will never come, you're stuck in their orbit. But the moment you accept that their silence is the apology, you're free to move forward on your own terms. Silence is powerful, but only if you interpret it correctly. If you misinterpret it, you'll see it as unfinished business. You'll spin endless stories in your head, wondering what they're thinking, what they're feeling, why they haven't said anything. That cycle will exhaust you. But when you reframe silence as a complete sentence, as closure in itself, you take back your peace. You stop needing them to say, I'm sorry, because their silence already confirmed everything you needed to know. And let's be honest, words without change are meaningless anyway. Someone could apologize 100 times, but if their behavior never shifts, what's the point? On the other hand, silence can reveal the truth far more clearly than empty words. When someone stays silent, they're telling you they're not willing to step up. They're telling you they're not capable of giving you what you need. That truth is painful, yes, but it's also clarity. And clarity is the foundation of healing. Here's a perspective that might change how you see it. Their silence is a gift. A brutal gift, but a gift nonetheless. It removes the mask. It strips away the illusion. It forces you to stop living in hope and start living in reality. You no longer waste energy on a version of them that doesn't exist. You see them for who they truly are. And that truth sets you free. So the next time someone stays silent when they should speak up, when they should own up, when they should step up, don't see it as unfinished. See it as finished. Don't see it as weakness on your part. See it as weakness on theirs. Don't see it as a reason to keep waiting. See it as a reason to move forward. Because the apology you wanted is hidden in the silence. It's the quiet confession that they cannot meet you where you are. And that's all you need to know. You don't need the words. You don't need the explanation. You don't need the closure. The silence is the closure. And once you truly accept that, something incredible happens. You stop listening for them and you start listening to yourself. You stop chasing their accountability and you start building your own peace. You stop needing their voice because you've found your own. Their silence was never meant to keep you stuck. It was meant to remind you that your healing doesn't live in their mouth. It lives in your choices, in your perspective, in your decision to stop waiting and start living. So recognize the silence for what it is. Don't fight it. Don't argue with it. Don't try to fill it. Let it speak. Because it already told you everything. And now it's your turn to answer with your life, with your growth, with your freedom. There comes a moment in every healing journey where you realize no one is coming to save you. Not the person who hurt you, not the people who abandoned you, not even the ones who love you the most. They can support you. Yes, they can listen, comfort, and encourage you. But at the end of the day, the responsibility to heal, to move forward, to reclaim your life, it belongs to you. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you begin to take your power back. Responsibility gets a bad reputation. People hear the word and immediately think of blame. They think it means saying it's my fault. But responsibility and blame are not the same thing. Responsibility is not about fault. It's about freedom. It's about saying, even if I didn't choose what happened to me, I get to choose what I do next. That distinction changes everything. You see, as long as you're waiting for someone else to fix the damage they caused, you're stuck. You've placed your healing in their hands. And if those hands are unwilling or incapable, then your life stalls. But when you take responsibility, you shift the power back to yourself. You stop waiting for an apology that may never come, for closure that may never arrive, for justice that may never be served. Instead, you say, this is my life, and I will not let it be defined by someone else's choices. That is the most liberating decision you can ever make. Let's be clear. Taking responsibility does not mean excusing their behavior. It doesn't mean pretending the betrayal didn't cut deep or that the wound didn't leave scars. It doesn't mean minimizing the pain. What it does mean is that you refuse to let that pain dictate your future. Responsibility is you drawing a line in the sand and saying, I did not cause this, but I will not let this continue to control me. Think of it like this. Imagine someone broke into your house and shattered every window. You didn't cause the break-in, and it wasn't your fault. But once the damage is done, the responsibility to repair those windows falls on you. If you wait for the intruder to come back and fix them, you'll be living in a broken house forever. But if you decide, this is my home, and I'm going to restore it, you take ownership of the repair process. That's exactly what reclaiming your power through responsibility looks like. The truth is, life is unfair. People betray, people lie, people hurt us in ways we never deserved. You cannot control that, but you can control how you respond. You can control whether you let that betrayal define you, or whether you use it as fuel to grow stronger. Responsibility is not about rewriting the past. It's about writing your future. There's also something deeply empowering about realizing you are not powerless. Pain often makes us feel like victims. It makes us feel helpless, like we're at the mercy of circumstances. But responsibility flips that script. It reminds you that you are not helpless. You are not stuck. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you always control what you do next. That's where your freedom lies. Now, responsibility isn't easy. It forces you to confront your own choices, your own patterns, the ways you may have allowed the wrong people access to your life. It demands honesty, and honesty is uncomfortable. But that discomfort is the birthplace of growth. When you stop pointing fingers outward and start asking yourself, what can I do from here? You step into a level of power most people never experience. Responsibility also means shifting your focus from what you can't change to what you can. You can't change their actions, but you can change your boundaries. You can't change the betrayal, but you can change how much longer you allow it to occupy your thoughts. You can't change who they are, but you can change who you choose to be moving forward. That's the essence of power. Taking control of the controllables. It also means choosing to invest in yourself rather than in resentment. Resentment is heavy. It eats away at your energy, your joy, your future. But when you say, I am responsible for my healing, you stop pouring energy into bitterness and start pouring it into growth. That might mean going to therapy, picking up a new habit, building healthier relationships, or chasing goals that reignite your passion. Responsibility is active. It requires you to move, to build, to take steps that reclaim your life. And here's the beauty of responsibility. Once you embrace it, you become unstoppable. Because no matter what life throws at you, no matter who fails you, no matter what pain enters your story, you know you have the power to rise. You stop fearing the future because you know you can handle it. Responsibility becomes your armor and your weapon. The opposite of responsibility is waiting. Waiting for apologies, waiting for closure, waiting for life to be fair. But waiting keeps you in chains. Responsibility breaks them. Responsibility says, I am not defined by what happened to me. I am defined by what I choose to do now. And when you live that way, you no longer just survive pain. You transform it. You take what was meant to break you and turn it into the very thing that builds you. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still waiting for someone else to fix what they broke? Where are you still handing over your power, hoping for words or actions that may never come? And what would change if you decided, right now, enough, this is mine to carry forward. This is mine to heal. This is mine to reclaim. Because the truth is, no one else is coming. No one else can walk this path for you. But the good news is, you don't need them to. Everything you need is already inside you. The strength, the resilience, the power, it's there. And the moment you choose responsibility, you unlock it. Responsibility is not a burden. It's a gift. It's the key that unlocks your freedom. It's the decision that says, I refuse to stay stuck. I refuse to give away my power. I choose to heal, not because they deserve it, but because I do. And once you make that choice, your life is never the same again. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood words in our entire language. For many people, it feels like an impossible demand, like a command to forget the pain, to excuse the betrayal, or to welcome back the very person who broke you. And that's why so many resist it to hear the word forgiveness and think, why should I let them off the hook? Why should I act like what they did doesn't matter? But that's not what forgiveness really is. Forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't mean the wound didn't cut deep. It doesn't mean the memory disappears. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to reconcile with the person who hurt you. You can forgive someone and never speak to them again. You can forgive someone and still enforce the strongest boundaries possible. Because forgiveness is not about rebuilding the relationship. It's about releasing yourself from the grip of resentment. Think of resentment like poison. Every day you carry it, it seeps into your mind, your body, your spirit. You replay the betrayal and your blood pressure spikes. You think about what they did and anger consumes you. You imagine how unfair it was and bitterness eats away at your peace. The other person may be out there living their life, completely unaware or worse, completely unconcerned. But you are the one drinking the poison. Forgiveness is the antidote. It's the decision to put the glass down, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. Here's the part people get wrong. Forgiveness doesn't mean justice doesn't matter. You can forgive and still hold people accountable. You can forgive and still pursue consequences if necessary. But forgiveness shifts the weight off your shoulders. It means you no longer spend your nights fantasizing about revenge. You no longer tie your peace to whether or not they get what's coming to them. Forgiveness says, I refuse to let you live rent-free in my head any longer. I release you, not because you're innocent, but because I am done carrying you with me. Forgiveness is strength, not weakness. Weakness is letting anger dictate your life. Weakness is letting bitterness rob you of joy year after year. Strength is looking at the wound and saying, yes, it happened. Yes, it hurt. But no, it does not own me anymore. Forgiveness is reclaiming your identity from the hands of the person who broke it. Now, forgiveness is not instant. It's not a single moment where everything magically feels lighter. Sometimes forgiveness is a process you choose again and again, day by day. One morning, you wake up feeling free, and the next day the old anger creeps back in. That doesn't mean you failed. It means healing is layered. It means every time you recommit to forgiveness, you are peeling back another layer of the pain. Forgiveness is not an event, it's a practice. It's also not something you do for show. True forgiveness isn't about telling the other person, I forgive you. You don't even need to say it out loud. Forgiveness happens in the quiet corners of your heart. It's a private decision, a conversation you have with yourself. And often it's a decision you never share with the one who hurt you, because it was never about them in the first place. What forgiveness really does is break the chain between you and the past. As long as you hold on to the resentment, you're tied to the moment of betrayal. You keep revisiting it, reliving it, re-experiencing the pain as if it just happened. Forgiveness cuts the rope. It doesn't erase the memory, but it loosens the grip that memory has over you. You stop living in that moment and start living in the present. And here's the truth, when you don't forgive, You don't just punish the person who hurt you. You punish yourself. You carry stress that weighs on your body. You carry anger that clouds your mind. You carry bitterness that bleeds into your relationships with people who had nothing to do with the original wound. How many friendships, opportunities, or even loves have been ruined because you couldn't let go of something someone else did? Forgiveness is how you stop the wound from spreading. Some people will say, but if I forgive, it's like saying what they did is okay. No, it's the opposite. Forgiveness is acknowledging the depth of the wound, while also declaring that you will not let it control you anymore. It's saying this was wrong, this was painful, but I will not allow it to define the rest of my life. That's not excusing, it's reclaiming. And let's talk about reconciliation for a moment. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two completely different things. Forgiveness is about you. Reconciliation involves both people. You can forgive without ever reconciling. You can forgive and still say you no longer have access to me. You can forgive and still walk away. In fact, sometimes forgiveness is walking away, because reconciliation without accountability is just enabling. Forgiveness without boundaries is just self-betrayal. Real forgiveness sets you free, but it also protects you. So what does forgiveness look like in practice? It looks like choosing peace over revenge. It looks like setting down the heavy backpack of anger you've been dragging for years. It looks like focusing your energy on building your life instead of resenting theirs. It looks like waking up one morning and realizing their name no longer makes your chest tighten. It looks like discovering that joy has room to grow again because bitterness no longer occupies the space where joy belongs. Forgiveness is not easy. It's one of the hardest decisions you will ever make, but it's also one of the most liberating, because the moment you forgive, the moment you truly let go, you create space for healing, for growth, for love, for freedom. You stop defining yourself by the wound and start defining yourself by the strength it took to rise above it. And maybe the person who hurt you will never say sorry. Maybe they'll never admit what they did. Maybe they'll go through life convinced they were right. But that's their burden to carry, not yours. Forgiveness is how you refuse to carry it with them. It's how you say, your choices are yours, but my peace is mine. That's what forgiveness really means. Not weakness, not forgetting, not excusing. Forgiveness means freedom. Forgiveness means choosing yourself over your anger. Forgiveness means refusing to let the wound win. When you've been hurt deeply, it's easy to let that pain become the lens through which you see yourself. The betrayal, the abandonment, the rejection, they creep into your identity until you start defining yourself by the wound instead of your worth. You begin to see yourself as the one who was cheated on, the one who was abandoned, the one who wasn't chosen. And if you're not careful, you end up living your entire life in the shadow of someone else's actions. But you are so much more than what was done to you. Building a new identity beyond the hurt is not just possible, it is necessary if you want to reclaim your life. Here's the thing. Pain is powerful, but it's not permanent. What is permanent is who you decide to become after the pain. You have a choice. You can wear your wound like a name tag, or you can use it as fuel to step into a stronger, wiser version of yourself. The hurt may be part of your story, but it does not have to be your entire story. The person who betrayed you may have written one chapter, but you are the author of the rest of the book. The danger of letting hurt define you is that it traps you in the past. If you see yourself only as a victim, you will live like a victim. You'll approach new relationships with suspicion. You'll approach opportunities with hesitation. You'll approach life with fear instead of courage. But when you choose to build a new identity, you stop being the victim of your story and become the hero of it. You say, yes, I was hurt, but I am not just what happened to me. I am what I choose to do with it. And that's where transformation begins. Building a new identity means asking yourself, who do I want to be now? Not who you were before the betrayal, not who they said you were, not who the wound tried to convince you to be, but who you want to be moving forward. Pain has a way of stripping us bare, of tearing away illusions. As brutal as it is, it also creates an opportunity to rebuild on a stronger foundation. Think about a house damaged in a storm. Maybe the roof is ripped off, the windows are shattered, the walls are cracked. You could stand in the wreckage forever, staring at what you lost. Or you could decide to rebuild, this time stronger, sturdier, better. You reinforce the beams. You use materials that last. You install windows that can withstand the storm. That's what building a new identity looks like. It's reconstructing your life with the strength you didn't know you had until the hurt revealed it. The truth is, identity is not something that happens to you. It's something you create. And pain, as much as it feels like destruction, can also be raw material. Your resilience, your empathy, your courage. All of those qualities often grow in the soil of hardship. Think of the people who inspire you most. Many of them didn't rise despite the pain. They rose because of it. Their hurt became their catalyst. And yours can too. But let me be clear. Building a new identity doesn't mean pretending the wound didn't exist. It doesn't mean burying the past or faking strength. It means integrating the pain into your story in a way that empowers you instead of defining you. You take the lesson without letting the hurt be the label. You acknowledge the scar, but you don't let the scar become your name. Ask yourself this. What did the pain teach you about yourself? Maybe it showed you how much you can endure. Maybe it revealed strengths you didn't know you had. Maybe it gave you a clearer sense of what you will and will not tolerate moving forward. Those are building blocks for your new identity. Use them. And then take action. Because identity isn't built with words, it's built with choices. Every day, you choose who you're becoming. You choose whether to replay the betrayal or rewrite the narrative. You choose whether to stay stuck in bitterness or step into growth. You choose whether to define yourself by the wound or by the warrior you became because of it. Identity is a decision you make daily, not a title handed to you by someone else. Here's what's powerful. When you build a new identity beyond the hurt, you rob the person who hurt you of any lasting control over your life. They may have caused the wound, but they don't get to define who you are because of it. They may have written one painful sentence, but they don't get to dictate the rest of the story. That belongs to you. And when you step into that truth, you realize that what they did may have broken something, but it didn't break you. It forged you. The new identity you build becomes proof that pain does not get the final say. You become stronger, more grounded, more self-aware. You begin to attract different people, make different choices, and walk into opportunities you might have missed if you stayed stuck in the shadow of your hurt. That's the power of redefining yourself. You create a life that is not just about surviving pain, but thriving beyond it. And maybe one day, you'll look back and realize that the wound that once felt unbearable was the very thing that pushed you into becoming the person you were always meant to be. That doesn't justify what happened. It simply means you refuse to let it destroy you. You built something greater out of the rubble. So who will you be now? Will you stay chained to the old identity, the one rooted in betrayal and bitterness? Or will you rise and claim the new one, the identity built on resilience, wisdom, and strength? The choice is yours. The power is yours. The pain was real, but so is the possibility. Because at the end of the day, you are not your wound. You are not their betrayal. You are not their silence. You are not their absence of an apology. You are the person who rose anyway. You are the person who took the broken pieces and built something stronger. You are the author of your story, and your story is far from over. There comes a point where you stop asking, why did they do this to me? And you start asking, what will I do with it now? That is the turning point. That is the moment you take your life back. Because the truth is, waiting for apologies that may never come will keep you trapped in yesterday. But choosing to accept the silence, taking responsibility for your healing, redefining forgiveness, and building a new identity beyond the hurt that will set you free. You don't heal by going back to the person you were before the pain. You heal by becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone unshakable because of what you've endured. That doesn't mean the betrayal was fair or deserved. It means it will no longer define you. The scar is proof you were hurt, but it's also proof you survived. And here's the most important truth. Healing is not something you wait for. Healing is something you choose. Every single day, you wake up and decide, I will not be owned by my past. I will not let resentment run my life. I will not give the person who hurt me one more ounce of power. You are not powerless. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not waiting for anyone else to set you free. The key is already in your hand. The only question is whether you will use it. So choose yourself. Choose your peace. Choose your future. The apology may never come, but your healing doesn't depend on it. Your healing depends on you. And once you understand that, no one, not the one who hurt you, not the silence, not the past, can ever hold you hostage again. This is your life. Take it back.